Please welcome Darren Walker and Disha Dyer.
Where is Disha Dyer?
Hi. Hi, hello. Derek. Oh, this is so weird. Oh my God.
Disha Dyer. Former White House Social Secretary
Yes.
and Chief of Staff to the President of the Ford Foundation.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome home,
Thank you.
Disha.
Oh, it's so good to be here. I'm so excited. Hi, everyone.
Well, Disha Dyer,
Yes.
where do we start?
I don't
Where do
even
we
know.
begin? As you have sat in this auditorium
Yes.
on many, many occasions,
Yes.
but you've never sat here in the hot seat.
I have never.
Been looking forward to this.
Yes, I'm so excited.
We're going to get to your book, Undiplomatic. How my attitude created the best kind of trouble.
Yes,
We're
including
going
here
to
at
talk
Ford.
about the kind of trouble you have committed. In the White House, before the White House, at the Ford Foundation. There's a lot to cover.
Yes, there is.
But I know everyone here, and certainly the Fordies in the room, are so happy to see you back in the house.
Yes, hi, Ford. Hi.
And I have to say, one of the great privileges of my time at Ford is the opportunity we had to work together.
Yes.
I learned so much from you. You taught me so much. And it was a difficult day when you told me you were going to leave because you had left such a mark and so many memories and so many admirers and followers. So thank you for that. You are in everyone's memory here present.
Thank
And certainly for me, as you know, you were great every day, but as you know, the day I lost my David, you were there, and it was a really, really tough time in my life, and you were just great.
Yes, of
and
course.
I just want to thank you for that.
Of course.
But I want to talk about this book. Disha, there is so much in this book I want to, but I want to, before we get to the specific questions in terms of content, why did you need to write this book?
Yeah. Well, number one, Darren, thank you for having me back. I love this place, y'all. I love it. I love it even more as a guest. I'm like, oh, I'm not getting Darren. I'm not getting Lada. But it is such an honor to be back here. I miss you all so much at Ford, ridiculously miss you all. So I'm just so happy. And then happy, of course, to see Tara, who replaced me here. Where is she? Somewhere. Oh, there, she's back
There's
there.
Tara.
So I'm so happy. And Darren, I just love you. As you know, I love you very much. And so this book, it was so important for me to write it because I think that we're at a time where we don't talk about real mental health issues enough. And I'm not a therapist, although I pretend to be. I'm not a therapist, but I could entertain you with some fun stories while telling you a little bit about my life and a little bit about imposter syndrome and a little bit about just being Black and using my voice for good. I think that, I've always been the girl that talked too much, talked out of turn, got in trouble, got suspended, all those things. And so I really wanted to write it for all of us who have too big of mouths, but we use it for good, that we are in the right place. And so that's why I wrote it.
And so you and I used to talk about the imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And so, the imposter syndrome is not new, but you have a take on it.
I do.
And tell us what Disha's take is, which is in one chapter,
Yes.
the opening chapter. of the
Yeah,
book.
so my take used to be that, I wasn't educated enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I'm too dark, I don't have enough money, all of these things, and all these things are my fault. It makes me not belong in a room, makes me not deserve. Now I'm like, what systems are in place that make us feel that way, right? Because it's not, I love y'all. Y'all like church.
I know. This is the thing. This is the thing when you come to Ford now. It's like going to a black church.
Yeah,
because people will just be like, yeah, they'll be like,
yes,
yeah, no,
yes.
exactly.
Pass the plate. Yes,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes. But I think that, now I see that like the people that benefited from me feeling not good about myself was everybody else but me. And I would be in a space, like I would, be here and be like, even here at Ford, and I come in and do the work with Darren, but I'm like, but I'm not a senior advisor, I'm not a program officer, I'm not this, that way I'm not as valued as other people. And I'm like, but no, I'm providing a service, but I still would feel out of place. And I felt like that my entire life. But I think part of it is because I was a young girl who didn't grow up with her family and was told I was just too loud, and that kind of just continued throughout. So now I feel like imposter syndrome is a tool of oppression that just makes us feel like we don't belong, that we're not smart enough, and it's just entirely BS at this point. So yeah.
And it is a way in which people try to create hierarchies.
Yes.
Try to design you out of the picture. It's a form of erasure.
Yeah.
And it's systemic.
Yes.
And it's often deployed against women, black women, queer men.
Yes.
I mean, we could just go. And do you think that by actually naming it and rejecting it, rather than absorbing it. It sounds like to me you have reached a point where you absorbed that feeling.
Yes.
And now it's like you repel it.
Yes, I dissent, I divorce, I go against it because no one will ever make me feel like I don't belong. When I was born, when you were born, were worthy. Whether you graduate from a 4-year or not, you are still worthy. You are still valued with or without a promotion. And so to me now, I'm like, I'm divorcing that idea, but that's easier said than done because it's a psychological game. So I couldn't just say, I divorce and leave. It's just like, no, I have to go to therapy. I have to go back and figure out, when did this all start for me? It started when I was young, so I had to heal those wounds and go forward from there. But it feels strange because now I'm so proud of myself and I feel so good, and it feels almost like you're being conceited, like you're being too full of yourself. But I think because we're just not used to loving ourselves in the most purest way. So yeah.
And so let's go back to that. Let's talk about what the roots of these feelings are for you. And you did have a difficult childhood.
I did.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so my parents got divorced when I was very young, but then my mom put me in a boarding school called Milton Hershey School, which some of you may know, but if you've ever eaten a chocolate bar, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, you're familiar with the school. Thank you for funding my education. And so she put me there, but the school itself was very white-centric. It was very Christian conservative, disguised under family values. You know how that works. And so I was always told, my hair was too kinky, my nose was too wide, the way I talk was too urban. But, back then it was like, you talk very, what they say, you say you talk, like you have an attitude. That was a code word. I heard you loud and clear. And so I rebelled, as I do. I rebelled and got in a lot of trouble. They tried to put me on psych meds and all these other things, trying to tell me that something was wrong with me. And so I already got this idea when I was young that something was wrong with me, that I was flawed, that I was a mistake. And so I just followed that the entire time until somebody said, I was very involved in HIV/AIDS stuff when I was very young, at 14 years old. And someone's like, Disha, the way you use your voice to speak up for HIV/AIDS, this was when Ryan White, this was a long time ago, that's commendable. And I was like, really? I didn't realize that. And so I think that, going through Milton Hershey School and being ripped from your parents, it was like that. Those are people that are in charge of taking care of you, and all of a sudden they don't want you.
But your mother was actually looking out for you.
Yes, she was looking out for me with the education.
Like a lot of black mothers,
yes.
I'm going to get my child educated.
Yes, I'm going to get my child educated, and she didn't know. I think my mom didn't know, what a little crazy place it was. It was a little bit different place, so I think she didn't know. And, and she was living her life, the best she could. She wasn't healed from things, so that kind of had an effect on me. And I think that it's interesting because I was called like bad and all these things for so long, and the same school was like, can you come talk to her kids now? I'm like, oh, now you want me to come talk to the kid? Like, now that the president, you know what I mean? It's just like, so I think that that was the root of it all for me. And I had to dig up that root because with imposter syndrome, I always tell people you can get promotions, you can get achievements, but that high fades. And so you either have to keep chasing the high of achievements and validation, or you can dig up the root and replant new ones that are really just grounded in who you are and love and self-preservation. So that's what I did to do. Yeah.
But the story that you write so beautifully about is, you know, you were an intern.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, an intern. And 8 years in the White House. First of all, you were shocked that you became an intern.
Oh, very.
I mean,
the world
you were,
was shocked.
I mean,
Everybody was shocked.
I mean, you were. I mean, in the book, you were like, you told your girlfriend, I have an internship at the White House, and there was a store called the White House.
Yes,
and,
she thought it was White House Black Market. Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Like she literally thought you were gonna go work at that store, and why were you
100.
calling her?
Yeah.
What was the big deal? You had a job
she's
at
like,
that store.
Okay, what's your disc? Is it Family Friends discount? What's the deal? You know what I mean? I was like, no, the White House. She's like, and I was like, I know. You know, so yeah, it was quite a surprise. I applied for the internship because in November, 2008, I think everyone this magical celebration of Barack Obama, and when he came onto the scene, I was like, God bless this black man, he is not gonna win. Like, he just like is not gonna win. And then I started listening to more what he was saying. I never called myself a political person, but everything he was saying, I understood. It was like community talk, and I was like, oh, plus he's black, so I was like, but I think that it was just like, that magic is what made me apply. And I think that I was looking for a reason why I wasn't qualified. I was in community college at 31 years old. I dropped out of college. I'd written about my abortion. I was, always doing stuff in the streets with, gender rights. And lo and behold, I was the perfect person that they wanted for the internship.
And so you entered the White House as an intern.
Yes.
And I mean, the Obama White House was a special kind of blackness.
It definitely was.
And I mean, there are some who said that it was a little elitist.
Yes, that it was. I will say that it's that too. Yes, I will say that.
And that a woman like you, with some of our people, might have had some challenges.
Yes.
And so let's talk about that journey.
Yes.
So what was it like the first day when you walked through the doors?
I mean, I walked through first of all, I thought that something was going to disqualify me. I was thinking, I got the acceptance, I got my instructions, but I'm going to get through the door and they're going to look at me and be like, nah, sis. Like, we appreciate you, but like, we don't know what's going on with the braids, the nose ring, And so I think when I walked in the door, I realized, and I didn't know what to wear. I had no idea what interns wear. I didn't know about the navy and the black situation with the suits, and I had no idea. So I was wearing a blazer from Ross Dress for Less and khakis. I had no idea. And I walked in the door and I was surrounded by 19 to 21-year-olds who had the same anxiety as I did, right? So all these things I thought, because my schooling and, I was older, really, we all had that anxiety. Like, we were all like, what are we all doing here, But you have to remember that the people that were on the Obama campaign were so young. And so they could afford to be on the campaign. And so everybody in my department was younger than me. So when I came in, they were like, oh, you're 31. And I was like, yes. They were like, do you know how to do? I'm like, isn't this your job? Like, you work at the White House, But they were like 25, 26 because they came off the campaign. And so, very quickly I became known as the person who knew how to do stuff. And sometimes I didn't know how to do stuff. But then that got me a lot of adult work and interaction with the president. When the president was just, oh, an intern. And I'm like, oh, yes, hi, sir. Yes, that's me. But I didn't, they always thought I was staff. And so I learned to adapt very quickly. But I loved being an intern. It was great. Besides the no pay, it was great.
And so what was the moment when you transitioned to staff?
Yeah. So I finished the internship December of 2009, and I left the White House. And I was like, I'm still in
You
school.
thought you were done.
I was done, like,
Right.
because I didn't have a college degree. So why would they hire me? That made no sense they would hire me. But I got home and I felt different. Like I felt like I had accomplished something so big, something that was so much grander than and I never knew I could do something like that. So I was like, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna travel for the president, which is it's like a volunteer paid position called Advance. I'm gonna do that. And so as soon as I quit my job at home, my 5 jobs, because I had a lot of jobs.
Right.
As soon as I quit them, I got a call from the White House, and they said, we would like you to come back for a full-time job. And I said, well, I don't have a college degree. And they said, well, would you like to continue going to school? Like, how far are you out? And I was like, honestly, I just started back community college. I'm a part-time student. I can't afford to go full-time. I'm on a payment plan, but I really want to go to school for women and gender studies. And they said, well, we'll make it work. And so I moved back June 2010 to the White House and started going to school at nights and the weekends, and ended up graduating 2 years later with my degree at the White House. But that's the transition that I made. Yeah.
And when you write about your ascendancy, becoming the White House social secretary. So explain that chapter of the book, which has some very interesting twists and turns.
Yes. So my predecessor, as Darren knows, was Jeremy Bernard. He was the first male and first openly gay in the role, social secretary. And we went to dinner. And we went to dinner, and the whole plan was for me to tell him I was leaving. Because I was like, at this point, I got 2 promotions. There was nowhere for me to go but to be social secretary, and I was not going to be that. And he was never leaving. And so we went to dinner, and we were at dinner, and he says, I want to take you to dinner because I'm leaving. And I was like, well, so am I. So, how's this going to work? And so, we both can't leave on, Mrs. Obama because we're not going to end up alive. One of us is going to die. So I was like, we got to figure this out. He said, I think you should go for the role. And I laughed at him. It was honestly a joke.
Adisha, you had done so well in the jobs you had. So why would you think it was such a stretch?
Because the social secretary, who's ever familiar, is a creme de la creme job. It is a job of people that shop at J. Crew and Banana Republic and all those fancy stores, Saks Fifth Avenue, all those fancy stores. And I didn't have I didn't feel like I had a decorum for it. I didn't know diplomacy. I'm not, I'll say what I think. And so I was just like, sure, they don't want somebody representing them like me. And so I just thought that, all the social secretaries before them were big fundraisers. They had gone to all the parties. They had family money. And I was just like, that's just not me. But Mrs. Obama, thought different. And somebody said, you should really go for it. I said, well, before I leave, I'm going to go ahead and just try, but I'm definitely not getting it. I'm not gonna get it. So, and then when I had my last interview with her, my final interview, that's what I had, she didn't even interview me. She just asked me a question about my confidence, and she was like, you were always my choice for the job. And I was like, what? And, I was like,
well, this
what?
is the thing that is so interesting, because obviously in hiring you, I spoke to Mrs. Obama. I had a reference. A reference check. And since I know Mrs. Obama and Valerie,
yes.
I had reference checks. And her affection for you, Mrs. Obama's affection for you is almost boundless. She just loves her some Disha.
She does.
And so talk about that, because you then go on this journey with you and Michelle Obama. I remember being at the state dinner for Xi Jinping.
Yes, my first state dinner.
And that state dinner was flawless. I brought Beulah. I brought my mother, if you remember, I brought Beulah.
You brought your mom, yeah, you did.
Who, as you recall, well, she's laughing because it was mortifying. Because my mother, as you remember, we were standing with Madeleine Albright and Justice Sotomayor, and I explained to her as we were ascending the stairs where they were going to announce us, and you and Tina, you all were all standing over there.
Yes, we were.
And I said to her, when you get to the president, just say, thank you, sir. You're doing a great, and we're going to continue along.
I don't know why you thought she was.
I said, thank you, sir, my mother. And I said, this is my mother. And she said, thank you. And I moved to Xi Jinping, and I looked behind, and she is holding his hand above her breast. And I go back to her, and she is saying to him, my prayer circle at church prays for you every Wednesday night. And she is in a deep conversation with him.
Yes, yes.
And the picture that
Yes.
Valerie sent to me was of me
Yes.
grabbing her.
Yes, yes,
And my
yes,
hand is
yes.
like going like that, and I am pulling her off of him.
I remember. Oh, gosh.
I was mortified.
I remember because
they were laughing.
yes, I remember because
mortified.
our job was to move people along, and the president, when it came, especially black people, you know, the president used to be like, Disha, just let it go. Let it go. And I'm like, we got things to do. He's like, let it go. You know, they got prayers, blessings, oils. Like it was, and I think that me and Michelle Obama, I think the thing about her and about the president both, and I love them both so dearly, is that I walked into the White House with that same magic from November 4th, 2008. I was like wide-eyed. I was never confused. They were not my best friends, not no aunties, not no cousins. These are my bosses. Like, and I always treated them like that, you know, but I was always walking into the White House or walking up to the residence like, how am I just walking into their living room? You know what I mean? And I think that Mrs. Obama and President Obama, I think they eventually got sick of trying to convince me that I was worthy of the job, you know? And I think that at one point, President Obama was like, we're done. Disha, I don't know, like, you did a great job. We're done with telling you that. Like, you know, like, you have to get it together as far as your confidence. I'm like, okay. You know, and I think that, you know, her and I just met with her last week, and she's just so proud of me, and she endorsed the book, and they're amazing. And I mean, I didn't see what they saw in me, you know what I mean? And I'm thankful that they didn't let that go against me. They were like, you can get there, you can get there.
Well, and they had faith in your capacity to become the social secretary.
They did. And she said to me, you know, Mrs. Obama said, you know, Disha, you know, I'm from the South Side of Chicago. You're from North Philly. She was like, we like to fight, you know. She was like, but in this role, I need you to just like sometimes bring it down. She's like, it's not always, you know. And I was like, do I need to bring it down? And she's like, well, you can't always fight. I was like, I can't, you know. So she was very aware of like, you know.
But she helped you in a lot of ways with mentoring.
She did.
With coaching.
Yes.
She did. I mean, and I think the wonderful thing about your clear, deep relationship with the Obamas is, you know, she wanted you to succeed because you're right. I mean, Nancy Reagan had Bessie Bloomingdale, I don't know, some socialite as her.
Yes.
And she wasn't probably coaching her. She was But Mrs. Obama, she knew you just needed a little support.
I needed a little support, and she knew.
She saw that.
Yeah, and she knew she knew how I was in the community. I was going to bring in hip hop artists, and I was going to bring in black choirs for the Pope. I wasn't going to have the glee clubs. I was like, I'm bringing a black choir. She knew that everything they wanted to do in their last 2 years, which is about culture and community, that was my life. So I was like, let's do it. Like, and they trusted me with so much. You know, I just brought in everybody. So yeah, they just trusted me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you are, as you now reflect back, I mean, because now fast forward, do you still pinch yourself? I mean, do you still?
Yeah, I do. Darren, I still pinch myself I worked for you. Like, I still pinch myself because it's like I still have to look back at it because it's been 7 years since we left. You know, I was there to the very last day, the transition.
You were, and I love that photograph of you and President Obama dancing.
Oh, yes. We were like, dancing to Beyonce, and he was like, I thought you used to be a dancer. That's all you got? And I was like, oh. And I was like, you and these Pulp Fiction moves do not need to be talking. But I think, but I look back and I'm just like, it was such a magical time that will never happen again. No matter what, it will never happen again. And the fact that I was just at home watching their speech, you know, gave $10 a month, that's all I could afford. And I ended up the right hand to them on the last day. I'd do the transition to power. I was the last employee left. And it was just like, and then I flew with them on Air Force One when they left their honorary ride. And it was like just tears and, you know, and everything else. And it was just like, that's it, you know. But I think that I reflect now on what a time that we had. Like, we loved it so much. And there were hard times, of course, like anything. But I think that, you know, we did the best that we could. We opened up the house to everybody. We had a great time. You know, I still be trying to open up the house to people that I'm not even there, you know. But I think that it's it's a time like no other. And it catapulted me to work here and to write my book and to do a Harvard fellowship with a community college degree, So all those things I never thought were possible. It's a gift that keeps on giving, and I'm curious. Like my curiosity leads me. So I'm like, what else can I do? I'm like a little, magician, like, like what else can I do? And that leads me to the next step and the next step. So yeah.
You talk about the cost of being yourself.
Yeah. So I think for me, I had to accept that I'm a person that I'm a little bit out of turn sometimes. Sometimes I don't know decorum and diplomacy. Sometimes I speak up probably when I shouldn't. And the cost of that is I am labeled rebellious. Like, when I walk in a room, people will be like, oh, here she comes. And I'm just like, I'm here, But, I got that reputation, especially at the White House, because I would walk into a room and I would say something, well, why don't we have a black doctor instead of a black football player? Like, and they'd be like, well, Disha, you don't always have to say that. But I'm like, I'm going to say that, because if I don't say it, who will? But to me, I, think my reputation and people thinking I'm a troublemaker and people, not in the good way, people thinking, not inviting me places or how she is, I had to accept my reputation. I had to accept that that's okay with me, because I'm not gonna go to sleep like keeping my mouth shut about things, about justice, about anything else. And if that means I'm not included in things or if people think different about me, then that's okay. I'm okay with that, So I think that there's a cost to being yourself, and when we encourage people to be authentic, we're being half responsible. We're not being responsible at telling them the authenticity will cost you something, and you have to be okay with the consequences of not being liked, not being included, having a reputation. And if you can live with that, then please, by all means, be yourself. But we have to be honest about that, and so that's what that chapter about being yourself was about. Yeah.
And we have to also be. We have to also, where we started, and we're going to get to questions in a moment, but where we started was we have to also not let the systems that do that to you persist.
Yes.
Right? So it's not enough to simply say, I'm just going to accept that I'm going to be marginalized because I have a voice. The marginalizers need to be checked.
100%.
And the institutions need to be called out 100%. To say, actually, I mean, in this, obviously, these were lessons for us at Ford and continue to be. But the idea that in organizations, people who often offer counter narratives or may seem contrarian are actually contributing.
Yes.
And that it actually represents good citizenship.
Yes.
And a care for mission and values and the principles upon which the organization stands for.
Right.
Or at least purportedly stands
for. 100%.
And this is what you were saying. I mean, you knew in your bones what President Obama stood for. And needed to speak truth to that.
100%. And I think that also there's a privilege in once you get in a position of power, as obviously Darren Walker knows, you get in a position of power, it is me who looks for the dissenters to bring in, Right. So when I got in the position of power at the White House, I was like, what interns can I bring in that have dropped out of school and went back? Or, like I had somebody who was a single mom, was an intern, and we were to figure out babysitting so they could be a White House intern. Who went to community college? Right. For me, I always looked out for those people. Of course I had the, little Harvards and Yales in there too. But for me, once you get in a place of power, you have the ability to change the system in whichever way you can. And for me, I'm able to control who comes in the White House. I'm going to flood that in because those are the next people that then will do that for somebody else. Right. And so that I looked at as my responsibility on even an operations side. I wasn't on the policy side. I wasn't on a national security side, but I was like, but I can control who comes in for meetings and sits down with the president. So let me make sure I get this person in who's like the social worker in the community that makes $52,000 nobody pays attention to, but they're on the front lines of houselessness. Let's bring them to the table with the president versus the whatever, so I think that's how I tried to inflict change, and hopefully that continues. I looked at that, that's my responsibility to do, and I love that. I love that more than anything. I'm just like, to see people rise, all my interns now have better jobs than me, and I'm like, don't forget about me, but I'm just like to see them rise and then do the same thing. It's just.
And I know the Biden White House calls you too still.
Oh God, do they ever, Yes.
Right. This is the thing in
Yeah,
terms
me
of
too.
your continued
Yeah.
legacy.
Yeah.
That you still have the social secretary and,
Yes.
and the folks there.
Yeah.
Basically, you're an unpaid consultant.
Yes, yeah. Yes.
And I think that says a lot
Yeah, thank
about you.
you.
So, what, and we're going to get to questions and we'll give you a moment to prepare for that, but what comes next for Deisha Dyer? Deisha, you can do so much.
Yeah.
And you, of course, are beloved here at the Ford Foundation. And
I love the Ford Foundation.
I can imagine you doing so much.
Yeah, I think, as you know, I got married, so.
Yes, I was at her wonderful wedding.
He's at my wedding, yes.
Which
yes.
was a beautiful wedding planned appropriately for a social secretary. It showed that you had training.
Yes,
in
yes,
the-
I was on.
your wedding.
I was very much at my wedding. So I think right now, honestly, I think the number one thing, because a lot of people know my husband in here, he's a playful person, and I didn't really have a childhood, so like. It's so fun to do playful things with Wes. Like we go, go-karting and we go like snow tubing. Like these things that just like capturing the play of being a black girl when we had to go from age 10 or whatever age we were to either be adultified or punished or sexualized to like 16 and now we have a job. So I'm circling back to like that inner child of like black girl play, being carefree. I think it's important. It's so important. But I think the next thing for me, like my dream, and I think maybe you might know this because I was always trying to go visit all the offices in other countries. I think that my dream is like, I would love to live in another country for a while. I think I would love to do that. And I think that's something I still haven't been able to do.
What part of the world, Deisha?
Oh, I don't care, wherever somebody wants to send me. I don't care. Like I will literally leave here and go to JFK. I like send for Wes, send for my stuff. But my husband spent 2 years in the Peace Corps in Jordan, and so he had that, but I've never done that. And so I want to do that, I think, and I don't know what capacity, but I think continuing to, just be a fighter in the ways that I can, but also to preserve myself, and to continue playing and, to continue to get to know myself again after I've shed this imposter syndrome. It's like, who am I now? And it's been a whole fun thing getting to know myself again. So I think whatever comes from that, I'm up for. So yeah.
Great, beautiful. All right, so we have time for a couple of questions. We have mics in the back of the room, and so our colleagues will bring the mics down. If you raise your hand, if you have a question for Deisha Dyer, Tiffany and Green.
Give me a whole shout-out thing. Tiffany.
Well, welcome back.
Hi, honey. Thank you.
So thank you for this. I think a lot of black women struggle with this. And I think my question is, having worked in a lot of white institutions and working different places, you always get that stigma of an angry black woman when you raise your voice in a space, or if you have something to say that may be contrary to conversation, or you may feel like you shouldn't speak up when you see something. How do you encourage women or people of color to navigate that kind of space knowing that stigma exists?
Definitely. This is what I'll say. Number one, I think that anger, thank you, Tiffany, for your question. I think that anger is a healthy emotion, first of all. Like, if you see something and you have been under systems for so long as a black person, you're gonna be angry. You have every right to be angry. So when people say angry black women, I'm always like, yes. Must we? Would you like a text message of the things I should be angry about, right? And so I think that for me, I also realized that anger for me, the way I channeled it was not healthy for me. As you see, I'm wearing a monitor for my type 2 diabetes, right? So I look at it like I have type 2 diabetes and I have hypertension. And that was because I kept the anger in. I didn't know how to like get it out. Yes, I would do stuff, volunteer stuff or whatever else. So I think that number one, I think that you can accept the a label of angry because you should be angry. It's okay to be angry. I think that number one, you should watch how that affects your own health because you don't want somebody killing you softly, killing you slowly, right? Like me, right? So what I would say is find ways to get that out. How can you get that anger out? That could be in the workplace or outside of the workplace, kickboxing, going for walks, doing whatever. Like for me, for instance, I see my girl Latham here. For me, like, you know, the maternal health thing, the Black maternal health makes me so angry that I was like, how can I get this? Like, I'm not gonna have children. Like, like I'm not gonna have children. Like, that's not my thing. But like, what can I do, right? And so I was like, you know, Latham has, you know, training doulas, and so I signed up to be a doula, you know, and I was like, let me go through my training to be a doula because I want to be able to be in the room for Black women when they have, so nobody can get over on them. I'm going to learn about medical racism and all these things. So that's my way of channeling it. So I think that you channel that in a way that's healthy for you, that can give back, but also watching yourself, because you will drive yourself absolutely mad constantly thinking what people think about you. So you got to shed it. You got to shed it. Like, it's just like, I know it's hard, but you gotta shed it, because otherwise you're constantly like, are people thinking this, and is this okay, and is my, like, I'm not, no, we're not doing that no more. So that's what I say.
Other questions for Deisha Dyer?
I'm like, don't make me call y'all names, so like.
Okay, we have 2 questions here.
Yes.
First we'll go to the row there, and then.
First of all, I just want to thank you for being here and for sharing your wisdom. Just want to ask, what is your advice for women of color who are in both business and also in philanthropy, both predominantly white sectors? In order to, like, what is your advice to succeed?
Yeah.
And what I mean by succeed is in terms of, like, honestly, like, values alignment.
Yeah.
And I know you know what I mean by that.
Yes, I do.
So, yes.
Yeah, thank you for your question, number one. So number one, I think that I love seeing you all in business and philanthropy, because philanthropy is so white that I'm like, let's get some other folks in there and stick it out, right? But not to the detriment of your health. But this is what I say, and this is what I did at the White House, and it's in the book. Like, I stay close to community at all times. Like, so I had one foot in the White House of like social secretary fanciness, and I had another foot like at a place called Carpenter Shelter, which is a place for formerly incarcerated women in Alexandria, Virginia, where I would go volunteer and I would get my fix of being like, let me remind myself, like, why I'm doing what I do, why it's so important to be there. But I think the same advice I gave to Tiffany is making sure I took care of myself, and I didn't, but make sure you take care of yourself in a space where you have community. Like, you know, there's people in the job. Listen, there's somebody at the White House who kept me from getting fired. It'd be like, I'm about to get fired, like, you need to come right now. And he'd be like, let's go on a walk. Right? So having somebody there who was like, let me help you keep your job, right? So I think that, like, having people around you, but I think also when it doesn't feel good, don't sacrifice yourself for the community or the cause, right? Because we always want to hang in there because we're like, well, this place needs us. Yes, we do need you, but we need you for the long term. We don't just need you for your job. We need you for life, right? And so watching over yourself, but also get in a community. Get in community. I mean, like, even when I was here, I see some of the Black girls I was in community with here. Like, get in community. Like, they would always check on me. I would have lunch with people. So I think that that's how you do that. But the minute that it doesn't feel good to you, where you feel like you're not sleeping, your hair is falling out, whatever it is, you gotta go. Like, don't sacrifice yourself. But I think also just, like, always just email me too. I'll remind you. Like, how you should.
We have another question, I think, down here. Thank you.
Hello. 2 things. I would love your take on Valerie Jarrett, because I feel like she doesn't get enough credit. And I know she has a very strong mentoring spirit. And then the other thing, when people don't know you, all right, and you're in a room and you hear all this smack about politics and everything else, do you feel like you have to say something?
That's a good question. Thank you for your question. I'll answer 2 first. I don't feel like I have to say anything, because sometimes the conversation just isn't for me. I don't have anything to add. I'm not arguing with you over human rights. I'm not arguing with you. Like, we're not like I'm gonna do the work that I need to do. Like, you know what I mean? People are gifted for certain things. I am not gifted for like arguments on the internet, in person. I'm not doing that. But I can throw a fundraiser to raise money for a local candidate, or I can encourage somebody. So I think that I don't feel like I have to speak up. I think when people even say things about the Obamas, I don't speak up because like people saw them differently than what I saw them. I understand that my gaze is a little bit different. We were not perfect. There's probably more that we could have done. There's many criticisms, right? So I feel like I don't have to speak up unless you're attacking me. But then in that case, I need to walk away because I don't have the temperament to use words. So I think that I need to just walk away from that point. But I also, I also want to, and my cousin's here too. So my cousin's like, but I think that the other part is that like, I know what I'm good at. I'm good at action. So I don't have to talk. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna do what I have to do. And I'm gonna make sure that the next, people are armed to defend however which way they need to defend. So that's more my thing with politics. I know all the stuff that's going on. I even think about like everything that's going on right now, and I'm just like, I want to be on the internet and saying something. But adding my noise to that, I'm not quite sure that's what we need right now, and I'm not comfortable with that. But I can be comfortable reaching out to my friends who are going through things, or, you know, whichever which way. So I say that. About Valerie, so Valerie is interesting because Valerie, I didn't come in through Valerie. I didn't come up through the campaign, so I didn't even know Valerie Jarrett. And I was like, who's Valerie? Like, I knew no one. So, President, Mrs. Obama. And so I think that the thing is she has so much institutional knowledge, right? And she has so many relationships, right? That people don't, they see some, but they don't see others. But a lot move because of Valerie's relationships that people don't realize. And she's the head of the Obama Foundation. So she's still moving things, right? And about to open up a center. And she's a grandmother. So she ready to be done. You know what I mean? Like she's just like, so I'm waiting for the day where Valerie could rest. I don't know if she was able to do that, but the day she can rest, like I'll be very happy. But she gets a lot of credit for a lot that we did and still continue to do with the Obamas. Yeah.
Yes. Questions here. Thank you.
First, thank you. You spoke a little bit about the sacrifices of going into the space, building community. What about when you're creating that change in those spaces and in those rooms, and you look back at your community and your family specifically? How do you go about creating that emotional strength of showing up into a room where you're advocating for something and you look back at home and nothing has changed, or you're still dealing with the same issues that brought you into the space?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for your question. I will point to when we were at the White House and we had the string of death, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, and I'm walking into this very beautiful White House, you know, with the president and first lady, but my community is legit on fire, right? And our answer that we gave was not one that was sufficient, you know? And I think that I was in the rooms trying to bring people around the table, advocates from home, like that were just, you know, street soldiers, and being like they can come in and have a meeting. And so I think that for me, I only realized that I have a lot of power in what I do, right? If I continue to look back at the power I don't have or the change that's not happening, then I'm gonna get frustrated because it's not happening fast enough, right? We know that change is slow. We know that change takes time, and a lot of the change that I wanna see, I probably won't even see in this lifetime, to be honest with you, right? But I have to know that I'm doing as much as I can, like with the power that I have to trust that I'm moving a needle somewhere, right? Where that needle is, I may not ever know, but I know that when I leave this earth, I've done all that I could do, regardless of what it looks like on the other side. And also, I'm in touch with community. So even though maybe the outcome as a whole doesn't look like it's changed, I can see the one or two person that did change, the 1 or 2 people that did change, or the 1 or 2 people that are now leading an organization that I started. So I'm like, they're continuing and they're gonna make it better. So I think that I have to just have faith in that, right? And we can honestly look at history and look at like, the change that was happening before us, right? And be like, we were so frustrated. I'm sure all those people, the civil rights folks, they probably never, especially when I'm talking about, you know, Darren's mom, when people came to the White House, that black people that were over 70 years old, it was such an emotion that you would not believe because they never thought they would see the day. Like they would cry so hard because they would hold his hand. They never thought they would see the day that a black president would be in the White House, right? And some of those people did not live to see the day. So we have to trust that the same faith that they had, we have to have. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating, but we don't have another choice, right? And because we want to leave it better than we found it, it sounds like a cliche, but history shows that it's true when that happens. Yeah.
We have a question there and then here.
No, oh, no, hey.
Just kind of going with what you were talking about, change and it being, I also went to like a boarding school, and just thinking about growing up in an era where we think about incremental changes and you like go into the system. And I think we are being faced with a generation that says like, that has only gotten you so far, or also you did these things so we could move forward, right? And so I just wonder if you have any either thoughts or advice as folks are grappling. And I've also seen like the interactions that folks from the civil rights movements have had and with like Gen Z, right? And there's just a sense of like this entitlement, you got to pay your dues, but like these folks paid dues so that like those before them wouldn't have to pay those things. So I'm just wondering about your thoughts and advice as folks are working in a generational spaces. How do you embrace like what Gen Z has to offer, where they're saying like, okay, just because you put up with it doesn't mean you need to. And how do we go about that to really create those changes and to really to think about vision forward? Because I think so many times we get stuck in like what's not working, what hasn't worked. And so I think, how do we use that, the energy of Gen Z, to think about like envisioning, like think about what we actually want, those radical spaces that we want to create, and how do we stay in that space? And I'm just wondering, given your experiences and kind of like doing that, right, and being in these spaces where you felt really small and you're like, I'm not going to stay small anymore. What are your thoughts and advice about that and how we move in those spaces now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. I think that number one, I think that we have to listen. Like, I think that me included, so I think that we need to listen a little bit more and decenter our egos when it comes to these conversations. It's like, you know, it's just like at the White House, we used to have people who had nothing to do with houselessness be around the table to talk about the solution. Like what are you doing? Like, who are you? Like, you never experienced that. So like, I'm 46. So what am I telling a 21-year-old? Like what am I doing? I can give them wisdom. And I think that we are in the period of I'm right. Why can't we both be right? Like, why are we having this big thing that we both, you know, can't be right? So I think that we have to listen and we have to ask. I think too many times we assume what's better for younger generations based off of what was better for us. The times have changed. We've had a pandemic. You know what I mean? Like, we've had a lot happen where things have changed. And so I think that even though, you know, we have different opinions about Gen Z, I feel like we have to listen a little bit more and have these conversations and decenter our ego. But we don't know how to do that because we survived. You know, like, that's the worst thing. Well, I survived this. Well, why you want somebody else going through it? I wish somebody would have been like, Deisha, here's $1 million, don't struggle. Like, I'm still looking for it, by the way. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm looking for that. I want it to be easier. Like, when things are hard for me, I'm like, why is this so hard? I don't want this to be hard, so how could I make this easier, right? So I think that we need to stop acting like, we need to stop acting like we know it all, and we need to stop acting like we know what's best and what's coming, right? We don't. Like, all this stuff with AI, like, I couldn't tell you, I thought it stood for Allen Iverson. Like, I couldn't tell you, I couldn't tell you, like, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like I'm like, hey, 20-something-year-old, hit me on this game so I don't get scammed. Do you know what I'm saying? And leaning into that. But I think that we need to have more intergenerational conversations. And that also includes Gen Z being like, let me not look at y'all as some old, like, no, like, we went through some things. Like, I'm trying to hit you on game. And when you get 45, you're like, remember you told me? Yes. I hope I'm allowed to say I told you so. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's just having these conversations that we need to have and stop acting like, because we've been around longer, that we know better. I think we're more experienced, right? And giving them the benefit of the doubt that, like, they're 20-something or 19 or whatever. They've lived that long as us. They're not gonna know everything is us, right? But let's not pretend that they need to. But I think it's a conversation that's ongoing, you know? And I would love to be in conversation to find out more of how we could do that, so yeah. There's one over here, too.
Yes, my question was about power, this word power. I think this is a really important word. And I've been reading a lot about power lately because I know a lot of women lose power when they get married and have families.
Not me.
And, you know, just
if you met my husband, everybody who knows my husband's like, oh yeah.
Okay. So congratulations on your pending marriage. I'm glad you waited until you got your power.
Yes, 44, yes.
But one of the things I've heard is that to have power, that two things that really stood out to me. One is that people said you can't show emotion. And I'm not sure I agree with that because we just talked about how you did show emotion, and that's part of what gave you your power. But the other thing that they said is that you have to be able to do something that nobody else can do. You have to be irreplaceable. And so I just want you to like comment on how where you think your power came from.
Yeah. I think we do all have individual power. We're all different. We're all born different. Like we all have different experiences. So we all do bring different things to the table. I think when we get into a competition of what that is, and if it's better than somebody else, that's when we get in trouble. It's just like, well, no, I have more than you. It's just like, okay. Then it's silence. Like, so what are you going to do with that, right? And so I feel like, we all do have individual power. I think that it's a power grab of who's more powerful, and that's where we get in trouble. But I think that, the first part of your question, I'm an emotional person. I'm also 46 at this point, so I cry about everything. So I almost cried coming out here like, oh my God, Darren. But I think that I cry about a lot because I'm just getting in touch with that part of myself that allows myself to show emotion, right? And most of the time when I show emotion, I'll have people come up to me and be like, thank you for being so open and honest. Like this book, people, thank you for being so vulnerable. I'm like, well, isn't everybody that vulnerable? Thank you for being honest. I'm like, well, isn't everybody honest? Because I'm just thinking, I'm just talking, like everybody is supposed to be that open, but it gives permission for other people to have emotions, right? I mean, I'm sure there are probably times I was at Ford crying about something or whatever else and Darren would be like, are you all right? And I'm just like, let me get myself together. But I never hid that because I'm a human being. And I think once we get into jobs sometimes and we get into capitalism and we get into all these things, we become robots. It's just like, you're not a robot, you're gonna feel. Like all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, I'm having a hard time. Like I was on TV this morning and I was like, I don't even know how I'm getting through this. Like, I don't feel like talking about my book. Like I don't feel like that, like right now, and I'm gonna say that, or I'm not gonna say anything. And I think that we have to lean into that. And so I was very lucky also that once I got into a position of power at the White House, no one could knock me off except the president and first lady. So
how did you,
yeah.
what was it about you that got you into that position of power?
I think
If you had to say
if I had to say one thing, I think that I was just like hood to the core. Like I was just like, you know what I mean? We're at the end of the White House. They want to party. They want to have a good time. They want to bring in people. I think I knew how to do that. I think I knew how to reach people. I think that people knew who I was. There was never no faking with me.
And I think that was your superpower.
That was my superpower.
And
it still is.
It still is. But I think the traditional social secretary was not a person who was in touch with the community.
Yes.
And that was an asset for the Obamas because they valued that.
And he was a community organizer. So it was like, I think that was my superpower. My superpower was just being vulnerable and being open. And sometimes it gets me into trouble and sometimes I regret it. But for the most part, it opens everybody else to be open and we can have conversations about mental health and other things. That's important. So yeah.
We have one
more question over here.
Yes.
My cousin can wait.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna have a question. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Troy.
Great
to meet you. Thank you all so much for doing this. The question actually builds right on what she was saying. Both of you, and I would love to hear from both of you on this. Both of you have entered systems that were very different before you came there, right? You both entered into spaces and you had to be different and to experiment in very different ways and to break down, be very bold about how you approach various things. I'm curious how you built the trust, right, with the people you reported up to, with your board, with the Obamas, with the whoever you reported up to in the White House, to be able to do that, right? Because you can't as an intern necessarily, right, walk in and say we're going to change everything, right? But you had to there was a step-by-step process in terms of building that trust systematically. And so can you talk us through how you did that? I'd love to hear from both of you, if possible.
Let Darren go first.
Well, you have to. Well, I'm happy to go first if that means you go last.
Yes.
So, no, I think it is very important to be authentic and to be who you are unapologetically with humility. And I mean, when I was being interviewed by the Ford trustees and they were down to the 3 finalists, I was very clear. I mean, I am a black queer man from the South who went to public schools. I've never attended a day of private education in my life. I bring a perspective, and I think I bring some assets to the Ford Foundation. But if you choose me as president, you will get that. And so please don't choose me if you actually think you want that, and then, because we'll both be disappointed. But I hope you do choose me, because I actually think I am what the Ford Foundation needs at this particular moment. And so I think having clarity about that and an alignment with the in my case, with the board, in your case with the Obamas, allowed me then to have the trust and their confidence when I put forth a strategy that was a complete rethink of the Ford Foundation. I think I had earned the space and for them to take the risk, because there was risk. But I understood. There wasn't, I mean, there are not a lot of big foundations that would hire a black queer man as president 15 years ago.
Yeah.
No, let's not kid ourselves. These are progressive foundations, but they would not have chosen me. And so I was very lucky in that I was a part of this institution. I was a known entity to the trustees, and they did take a risk. And I think it was in part because I was so clear about sort of who I am and what you were getting if you make me president.
Ditto. Just kidding. I think what I would say is I never hid who I was. Like I didn't take out my nose ring. I didn't do all these things that would make me a different person. I was like, I'm coming in here as a 31-year-old with a community, not even a community college degree. I was very honest about that. But I think that my sincerity and my love for the community goes beyond. Like it goes beyond anything. And even when I can even talk about, and I get chills about it, because I will always ask about the people. And I think that when we came into the White House, it was very much like, Deisha, like, what do you love the most? What do you cherish? And I wrote my essay, because everybody else's White House internship is writing an essay about, like, China, nuclear security. And I'm like, I want to write about hip hop, right? And like how hip hop can be used as a tool of education in our communities if we lean into some of the hip hop artists to kind of teach it. And they were just like, that essay was brilliant, because we had never gotten something that was so relevant to right now. So I didn't pretend I knew anything else. I was like, this is what I know, and I think that they were so thrilled with my honesty. I also was a hip hop journalist. And so I was like, this is what I bring to the table, right? And even when I became the White House social secretary, the president, first lady, like, we want to party out of here. And I was like, oh, I got you, like, I got you, But while we're partying, can we have the audience be teachers and nurses and this, that, and the third? So let's try to invite some different people in here. So I think that I got their trust, just what Darren said, by being myself and just saying, like, I don't back down. Like, I'm always going to ask about the community. Like, I'm always going to ask where are the black people. Like, if I walk in a room and I'm like, where are the black people? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why aren't they here? Why am I the only one? And I would love for you to answer me. Like, I'm not going to get that, but I would like you, and I'm going to then invite some in, right? And I think that they saw that I was to be trusted. I never broke their trust. I didn't want to be in pictures. I just wanted the experience. I just loved it. I was like a child being like, my eyes are so open to what I could do, and it took me all the way to the top. And until this day, we have the greatest relationship, and we always talk about like what it was like, and the president, I was just with him in Philadelphia and in London, and he was like, Deisha's like, you were always so strict with us. You never let us do anything. I'm like, you're the president. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, I didn't let you walk down the street. You know what I mean? Like, he wanted to walk down the street in London a couple months ago. And he's like, Deisha, nobody will recognize me. I'm like, sir, But he trusts me enough to be like, Deisha says I should not walk around Piccadilly Circus. Maybe I should sit right here. And I'm like, yes, Deisha says. So I think that they just trust me as a human being and as a person. And it's, and that's, I think just by being myself and not trying to be like anybody else. And that's what's got me there. So, yeah.
The message from Deisha Dyer: be yourself, undiplomatic.
Thank you. Oh, gosh, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, team. Thank you. Darren, where are you going? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Darren. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
And Deisha has signed books for everyone.
I better keep signing. So thank you, Darren. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
So proud of you.